The views, comments, and opinions of the following program do not necessarily reflect those of Morris Media Studios, morrismedialive.com, or its affiliates. Listener discretion is advised.
Good day, beloved. Welcome to Faith Without Borders. I'm your host, Pastor Calvin Sauls. It is a joy for us to start off this month with you. We give God thanks and praise for the opportunity that we have to come together and kick off this month of August. Now, this month has many names. Black August. In fact, this year it's going to be Get in the Streets month. But we will be kicking off, given what's happening in the United States right now, a new series that we're going to check in around. And that series is entitled The Fierce Urgency of Now, Saving the Infrastructure of U.S. Democracy. We've had a lot of talk around infrastructure right now, and today we're going to kind of dig in a little deeper and see if the Biden-Harris administration and Congress can walk and chew at the same time as we, continue to do the work that we need to do around, securing and saving voter rights, especially, for all Americans, but especially, for people of color, our elderly, and those who are differently able because of what's going on. So it is a joy for us to have you with us to dig into that. And you'll see throughout our show today, we're going to have images, on the screen talking about or showing what's happening around the country, and those will come up frequently and occasionally, as we share in our time together. Here at Faith Without Borders, our vision and our mission, is to see how we can, come together and engage in a progressive and prophetic, thought-provoking, and solutions-driven transnational dialogue to advance racial equality and to move towards a more just and fair society, not just in the United States, but around the world. And today I'm glad to be joined by some friends, colleagues, and comrades who are on the front lines with us, in this fight for racial equity and racial justice, from right here in Los Angeles, in California, as well as, in the United States. And so we're very, very excited about that. I want to frame our series with these words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He wrote, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late with the right answers." He said at another time, "This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. And so that's what the fierce urgency of now is. And when I received the inspiration and information for today's show, I could not, move any further, but to track down in some form or fashion my brother, Pastor William Smart, who's the president and CEO of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference here in Southern California, so that we can just establish that lineage and that link, of this organization, of course, to Dr. King and phenomenal, risk-taking, prophetic, and progressive work that SCLC, has done and continue to do. And I just happen to know that, we got something coming up later on this month. So wanted to go ahead and just get that out. But to get into this, a conversation. Also, I was led to contact grandmama to be Jan Robinson Flint. I know she's, caring for my dear sister Nobasi and walking and working with her. But I thought I'd give her a little time out to come and join us, today. So we're looking forward to have, Jan Robinson Flint here, Executive Director of the Black Women for Wellness. I happen to be on the board of the Black Women for Wellness Action Pact, doing some outstanding work, up and down state. But I wanted to have Jan here, so that we can make sure that this conversation takes place with women in general, but in particular Black women, because of the fact that, they continue to be at the forefront of what's going on, whether it's being arrested, whether it is, knocking on governors' doors when they sign, discriminatory legislation, such as in Georgia, with a picture of a plantation hanging behind them, and getting arrested for that. We just had, the Women's March celebrating, women's suffrage. So women has always been at the forefront, and so I could not, help but make sure that we kick off this series, with Jan here, because of the work that we do together. And then, we will be joined later on by Bishop Dr. Monte Norwood, Senior Pastor, Bible Way Ministries International in Atlanta, Georgia. I wanted to bring that Atlanta piece in again. And because of the celebration that we've all had, Pastor Smart, the organizing and the support that we did, for, now, Senator Warnock, and to see what's going on. Now he's in the middle of all of this. But, we got Georgia over. But, as always, during the first Reconstruction and the second Reconstruction in the United States, and now that we are into the third Reconstruction, the backlash, is always fierce, because folk don't just give up power voluntarily. We got to fight for it. We ought to not just pray for it, but we ought to participate in seeing how we can protect it, as well as, I'm talking about, voting rights now, protect it, and to see how we can, continue to pursue it for everyone, here in the United States. So we know that, we are getting closer and closer to a compromised deal, in Congress on infrastructure. It's less than, what a lot of us want and how we look at infrastructure. But the biggest threat right now is, the infrastructure of the U.S. democracy. So we want to get into that and see, what's going on, where what is going on and who's out there. So let me, bring in, our guest today. Pastor Smart is here, as well as my dear sister, Jan. Good morning. Good morning. How y'all doing? All right. So we're gonna try it again. So if you're not unmuted, so we want to make
Good
sure you.
morning. Can you hear me?
So yeah, I can hear you now. There you are. Hey Jan, how you doing?
Doing good, doing good. How about yourself? It's
Good.
good to be here with you and Sister Jan again and anticipating the bishop coming on.
Yes.
God bless you.
Yes.
Ready to
Yes.
go to war, ready to fight on this great Sunday morning.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I'm doing
You
well.
know, coming
I'm
there
doing.
is a group called the acronym is WAR happening right now in California, and it's Women Against the Recall.
Right.
So that's an interesting word, war.
War.
Women Against the
All
Recall is
right now.
going on in California right now. And that is all about voting.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yes. Now look.
looking forward to this conversation, and thank you for inviting me, Pastor Smart. Oh,
Well,
Pastor
listen.
Saul.
Well, listen. You see, there. We all running in and up and down
Okay,
through.
I cannot hear.
You're on mute, Pastor Sauls. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me now? All
Yes.
right. Now, I knew that because we all run in and out through up and down the mud park. It would take us only a few seconds or so to get on the same page. So when Pastor Smart, you talking about ready to go to war, Jan picks this up and talk about war being an acronym. I'm like, oh Lord, that's it. We off and running. I'm doing well. A little tired today because yesterday we had the caravan for black migrants, from Los Angeles
Right.
to San Diego. So got home, a little late, but had to get up to make sure that we do this and we get this going. Let's check in, quickly in terms of just your, sense around, the state, of, voter suppression that's happening in a coordinated fashion, right,
Right.
around the country, just like all of those massacres took place in a coordinated fashion. When people think that all these things were taking place disconnected, right? But we have to always remember that evil is connected, right?
Right.
Injustice is connected, right? I mean, it was connected from the South to South Africa. Come on now, somebody.
Right.
So we ought not to be fooled and bamboozled by thinking that, when it
Could we?
comes to injustice and discrimination and racism, that the left hand don't know what the right hand is doing. Come on now, because we know that this is all coordinated. It is all connected, and so let's talk a little bit about it because almost 20 states right now, have passed hundreds of laws, around voter suppression. Give us just your sense right now of the state of U.S. the infrastructure of U.S. democracy, and why should this be should we be about the fierce urgency of now? I'm going to ask Pastor Smart to start us off and connect that link with the work Dr. King and others have done, and we also want to name the women, of course,
Right.
Rosa Parks, and all of our sisters, who've been out there, Fannie Lou Haim, etc., etc. Just your thoughts on that.
Yeah, we thank you, Pastor Sauls, and thank you again for inviting me this morning to be here with you. And under the auspices of the urgency of now, I think this is crucial. And I've been saying that it's time, it's fighting time, and also it's time for us not to give up. It's time for us to pull up our sleeves and fight. The Republican Party nationwide has organized around the states, like you said, some 29 instances where states are working to develop some type of, and they have voter suppression laws. And we again, it has become a issue between state rights and national rights. And that's why it is so pertinent that the Biden-Harris administration act. They have to act. We have to depend on the national government. Remember, Dr. King always said that we've got to get the national government because the states of Alabama and Georgia were already citadels of racism and white supremacy, and we have to let the national government, and the way we do that is we have to have actions, protest actions, right here in those states where the national press can pick it up during that day so they can see what the hell that Black folks are going through in these southern states. Right now, we have to, there's so many movements going on to get in Washington, putting an eye on Washington. I could care less right now about some infrastructure bill, because that's not the problem. The problem is the infrastructure of democracy. And we have to fix that first, because before we can fix anything. And so that's why we've seen this movement around progressives and Democrats who, on the state level, the city level, I have coalesced with about 4 of the 10 new groups right here that we're doing to making impacts. Because first of all, we have to make an impact right here, because as what Sister Jan talked about, the recall, we have to defeat that, and then we have to continue to defeat what they're, get this legislation, the John Lewis Act and the For the People Acts passed in Washington. We still, in Sinema and Manchin, those senators from Arizona and in Virginia, West Virginia, have to come on board. Biden has got to do that. Schumer can't push them. Biden has got to use his presidency as a bully pulpit to come forth right now. So that's why we're putting pressure on Biden now. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Pastor Smart. In the spirit of Ida B. Wells and Ella Baker, I'm going to ask Jan to continue, just to share some perspectives around what are we, going through, in terms of, the whole, piece around, the fierce urgency of now, and just the state, of the infrastructure, of U.S. democracy. Jan, you want to share some thoughts?
Sure, I do. First of all, I think I want to talk about a couple of things. One is that we, and when I say we, I'm talking about Black people, need to stay vigilant. We need to keep our foot on the gas. A lot of folks, I think, forget that democracy is active, fully active, engaged sport, for lack of a better term. Is not one where you can take your foot off the gas. It's not one where you can go away and forget about it and think that it will happen and continue. It is not. You have to be fully engaged with that. And by fully engaged, I mean, we can't simply vote for somebody and then expect them to do the right thing. We have to keep letting them know what the right thing is, and letting them know that we are watching them, and letting them know that there will be consequences if they don't do the right thing. Mm-hmm. So I say that because already I am disappointed with the Biden-Harris administration already. I think there are some very different things they could have done around the issue of Cuba. I think there are some very different things they could have done around the issue of Haiti, but that's international. Let's talk about even their work around immigration in terms of what's going on with that. I think there is some work to be done with what's going on around immigration. But if we bring it to voting, because we know that that is one power level that they are absolutely engaged upon removing from people who vote progressively or who vote with a moral consciousness from Black folks. So we have to keep that in mind, because you are absolutely right when you all say that there have been more legislation introduced to suppress voters than we can shake a stick at. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about California for a moment, and actually also about a key state, Georgia. But more importantly, I guess I want to say that there are two things that we have to watch out for. One is voter fatigue, right? Because I know in California, I feel like we have an election at least every other month here. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And people might be, we tired of voting, right? Or worse yet, don't even know that there's an election going on. Don't even know that there's a recall and how to work that ballot. Didn't know about Isaac Bryan's election. Don't know about the election in Oakland. So voter fatigue is real, but we must stay vigilant. We got to stay on it. And then voter apathy is another issue we have to make sure that we are concerned about. When there is, election after election after election, and things seem to stay the same or get worse, or, it's like you don't see the impact that it's having, because we forget about that part in the middle where you hold people accountable, that you make your visits, that you make your phone calls, that you jam them up if you see them hanging out, that if then you can become apathetic, because, we vote all the time and things stay the same. So I want to mention those things in terms of the voter fatigue, the voter apathy, and then making sure that we hold the folks that we vote for and the folks that we don't vote for but are elected accountable, that we let them know we are here, we are fully engaged, we are looking at them, and there will be consequences, both good and bad, for the work that they do. Over this past week, one of the things that I looked at, there are two things, was the testimony of the Capitol Police. And they were testifying about what happened on January 6th. And I was absolutely moved by it, because it illustrated, and it was very apparent, that there were some folks in this country who were about the violent overthrow of democracy. They were absolutely willing to violently overthrow Congress. And I don't think that we have fully recognized the gravity, or at least I hadn't. Let me put that on me. The dangerousness of what happened on January 6th, mm-hmm. which also led me to think about the number of people who voted for the other guy, right? And then I was looking at that and thinking about, for me, I'm looking in California, like you said, the left hand does know what the right hand is doing. And they are busily organizing in California, which some of us think of as a progressive state, about how to overthrow democracy. And California could be key in that overthrowing of democracy with this recall. And we could talk about how that might happen, or some scenarios of how that could go down. Mm-hmm. But what we have seen in California is that the Republicans, the white nationalists, are organizing. They are absolutely organizing, and they got a plan A, B, and C. So we need to make sure that we recognize that and be just as fierce, strategic, and busy without organizing.
Yes. and and also very engaged. Jan, as you mentioned, I mean, voter apathy, fatigue, that's real. Voter complacency, that's real. But the key piece is, democracy is a participatory, right? Endeavor and enterprise. And so we just cannot check in and check out. I mean, I think that's really what happened, after President Obama was elected. Folks just kind of, we went to take a nap, and guess what happened? Republicans and the Christian right, they went to work, starting with what the Koch brothers did, around the amount of money that they poured into think tanks, et cetera, around that. You mentioned, the whole piece, about, white nationalism. Part of the description, of today's show, I went ahead, and basically, named the whole, piece that this is, the coordinated efforts across the country in voter suppression by the Republicans and religious right, in their quest for minority rule. There you go, and and Christian nationalism. That is real, because again, as we heard in the testimony, this past week, from those Capitol, police officers, one describing, what he saw in terms of the flags, Christian flags, that he saw, flags talking about, Jesus, and in fact people praying before, they stormed, the Capitol, and praying in the chambers, you see, declaring, victory around this. So there's just this connection that we cannot miss, and we've got to be aware of, that connecting what happened on January the 6th with, the recall that's happening in, California, and what is being prepared for 2020. Now is, I mean, the fierce urgency of now is we cannot be spectators. We've got to be participators. Before we get to these two, laws that we need Congress to pass, because I think we want to, help people understand, especially the difference between them, and then, the role that the filibuster, plays in that as well. We can't assume that everybody just understands, all that stuff. Pastor Smart, I just want for you, to make this connection between, this whole piece about Christian and or religious nationalism, and how that continues to fuel, what the religious right, is doing, and, utilizing, Christianity, as a path, towards that. I mean, how do we come to terms with it? How do we deconstruct that? And how do we, make sure that we help people understand, the role of us as people of faith, especially during times like these? Pastor Smart, are you there?
I'm sorry. White evangelical Christianity has always, from the very beginning, it brought slaves into this country. It intensified during Reconstruction. It created the Jim Crow era, and it fought against civil rights. The first time that it was really challenged to an extent was when Martin Luther King wrote his letter from the Birmingham jail, challenging a wing of white evangelical Christianity and other progressive religious organizations at that time. And so you have had the merger of the Republicans and, with Jerry Falwell, Jim Baker, and you have the merging of the Christian right with the Republican Party during that time. And so they always were able to get candidates and get ideologies passed and intensified in the American political scene. And so now they're, the leaders, you look at many of the leaders of the religious movement, they supported Reagan. They were real, important in Reagan's election. And from that point on. And so you have a political arm and you have a religious arm, and that's the religious arm. And so it promulgates all type of ideologies that are important to continue to seduce many of Americans to believe that this is the way of God, going back to, during slavery times, this was ordained by God. And so that's a ideology, that's a mindset that is there and that has to be changed. But we have something on the left, now there's the Christian left is trying to intensify, but we're late to the scene. This has gone on, like I said, since the building of America, the Puritan Pilgrim type of philosophy. And so we change that, because we have to, number one, I don't think we have to look at it. I mean, we cannot fight it religiously. We have to fight it voting wise and electoral wise. That's the way we fight that. We have to turn out, we have to educate, and we have to empower our people, our churches. And in fact, I'm involved in the church effort now against the recall, but it's always about the resources. It's always about the manpower, woman power when we try to overcome or deal with that. So we have to again, it has to be at the ballot box. My leader, Dr. King, always understood that it was at, you have to change the law. You cannot legislate in the heart of man. Not even religion can do that. You have to do it at the ballot box, because people just don't change, even though that was one of his major efforts. Dr. Sauls.
Yeah, absolutely, and you're right about that. And it's quite interesting as we now look at, of course, the surge of COVID-19 again, and how that is impacting black and brown communities on the one hand, but on the other hand, the whole tension now with how do we open churches and folk wanting to get into the sanctuaries, and I'm just wondering, how do we connect the fact that maybe we should be in the streets, engage in worship through marching, right, instead of trying to get to the sanctuary for a service of worship. But that's a show for another time.
Yes, I put in the chat a minute ago, there's this uprising time. It's time for us to get in the streets. It's time to get in the faces. Dr. Sauls and Sister, and my dear sister, one of the things we constantly see with the religious right, and what we see is that they have a long-term strategy, and we get excited when we just like Sister Jan said, when one victory, and you said Obama. No, you have to be in it for the long term. Right. They're talking about, that's why we emphasize the three power pillars of democracy in terms of empowerment. They are voting, they are redistricting, and there's the census. Those three things, areas, is where communities have to participate in order to remain empowered and to be empowered. The Republicans are in for the long term. They constantly are doing these things that now it's their time to redistricting off of us not fully participating in the census the way we should have. All of this is connect. When you talk about connecting the dots, that's connecting the dots. You see in Georgia right now that they're going after, that new law has allowed them to go after when they think there's accountability in some of the county election boards. They're going after the most largest county election board in Atlanta area right now. Right. They're getting ready. They're saying that they're incompetent. That's the start. It's a game that they play. They're in it for the long term. We cannot just come in and out. We've got to, that's what you're talking about, Sister Jen. We got to fight each and every day. It's a battle, and voter fatigue is something that we cannot afford to. We, like you said, vigilance. This thing is for real. Our rights are being taken away every day. It's fighting time. And it's uprising time, and we are the people that have to do it.
Right. And we've got to get in the fight and stay in the fight. That's critical, for us to do that. Jan, I want to talk a little bit, and we're gonna get to the California RICO, because I think that's all connected with the whole, suppression piece that's going on, and other schemes and systems such as recalls, right? To see how we can, impose the will of a minority on a majority. These two bills right now, that really can challenge and actually, render illegal, all these suppression laws that was passed at the state level, right? It's the For the People Act and the John Lewis Act. Can you tell us just a little bit about, what's the difference between the two, and why it's so urgent to get those passed because of, what's happening, at the state level around it? Just give us a little bit of, education, around the difference between those two.
I don't know how much education I have. I got opinions, and you know that we started a podcast. I'm just saying, two Black women with opinions, because we got opinions, and we have observations of what is going on. So I think that the one thing that we need to make sure that we bring out is that this is a long game, right? Is that this, I recently had an opportunity to go to Ghana. And when I went to Ghana, I went to some of the slave castles. And it was amazing to me that they put their rooms to worship, their churches, on top of the dungeons where they enslaved people. So they would be singing their praise while they could hear and smell and feel the stench of inhumanity that was going on. So we talking about something that happened for hundreds of years, and that they used religion to justify, support, and fund. So that long game is still in effect. And I also wanted to mention that then there was this thing I kept hearing about, liberation theology. And I thought about, the Nat Turners, the Denmark Vessies, even the Martin Luther King Jr., who came along and were able to study religion and then begin to use it to liberate some folks, right? To speak some truth to power, to begin to reshape that thought. And then the I want to say the influencers and powers that be in those schools decided, okay, enough of this. We creating, warriors and advocates. Let's stop that and have people going along. So that's what I'm saying. It's a long game that we are engaged in. And when I say a long game, I'm thinking now, so it is not a game that is simply for my generation or for my child's generation, but we got to think generations up the path, right? I know a Native American belief is 7 generations. We got to think 7 generations down the path. right? So if we're thinking 7 generations down the path and looking at what they are doing now in terms of the John Lewis Voting Act or the tool that they're using with the filibuster, we will realize we've been here before, right? With that whole period of Reconstruction. So that period of time that I'm talking about right now is like the 1860s, right? And for the Civil War, I'm going to say they put a pause on the Civil War in 1865 and decided we're going to use another tool of war. We're going to use some other stuff, and that's when filibusters and all those voter suppression tools started coming into being. That's when that white terrorism picked up their speed in terms of the numbers of lynchings and folks, getting their land stole, etc. So here we are in 2021, and we're still using some of those same power tools, or they are still using some of those same power tools. They're still figuring out ways where they suppress our voices and our ability to vote, right? So that's what the filibuster is all about. It's like, how does the minority seize the floor and keep the floor and just keep talking, right? So how do we suppress voting? I'm sure we have all learned about poll tax and grandfather taxes and all those type of things. Well, let's get cute about how do we bring those back. And we have to be, like I said, thinking about the long game and thinking about all those folks that we sent to Congress and thinking about those folks that we need to send to the Senate to preserve, protect, and grow our rights.
Yeah.
Dr. Sauls.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I thank you, Sister Jan, for that. And then, one of the things that the John Lewis Act does is it goes after it tries to empower again the 1965 Voting Rights Act, and we're celebrating the 7th of August. And remember when the Shelby County versus the Attorney General at the time, I want to say Eric Holder, and they took away the provisions that allowed the federal government to monitor into states that have had over 15 or more not restrictions, but incidents of voter discrimination. So it went after that. And so John Lewis gives us an opportunity to, the government to get back involved with voting rights allegations and suppression. That's some of it. And then the For the People Act, what it does is some of its key provisions is it watches for gerrymandering. Of course, campaign finance is involved in that also, but the gerrymandering and restrictions like that. So both of them play in very important roles. There's more to them, but for time, I'm just mentioning those are some of the key provisions in them.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, the John Lewis one, that's the narrow one that, as you mentioned, seek to really deal with fixing that problem that took place in the 2013 Supreme Court ruling, right? That makes it harder for the federal government to block racially discriminatory voting laws and redistricting proposals. Yes, so that, and we right now in the midst of redistricting, around that. And then HR 1, is the one that's really a broad base, a law, that really seek to cover, a lot of things, very ambitious proposal to see how we can transform every aspect of elections and campaigns across the country which include financing, and all of that, as we, see to secure the voting rights, of all Americans, of course,
DC
especially,
rights, DC rights are
yeah,
in there also.
and DC rights, in there, also. So one is very narrow and specific. The other one is broad based. That's why we need both, because they complement each other, right? As we move on. And really, I mean, folk are talking about trying to break it up and piecemeal it, and this whole piece again, about how do we take it, in small chunks, and how do we, figure out ways, to appease, those who don't want us to have,
Right.
all of our voting rights anyway. I mean, it's just very, very, challenging and frustrating, with this, disposition, of incrementalism. I believe that incrementalism, when that takes place, what we are doing is strengthening the hand, of the discriminator or the oppressor, and we continue to inflict pain on the person being discriminated or the person being oppressed. And so I have a lot of issues with incrementalism,
Yes,
in terms
I do
of that.
too,
But
Dr. Sauls.
mhm,
And
yeah,
you know what? I have issues with um, people, Democrats who don't have the wherewithal to fight. Because if the Republicans were in the majority the way they are right now, we know that they would try to um, get rid of the filibuster. We know
yeah,
that they would be pushing forward on that. They know they would wrap up all 50 of their members.
right.
If they had the White House, that president would be gone. People like Cinema and Merchant would be Manchin would be there every other day. They
Hmm.
would say, getting them what they wanted for their state so that they could vote with the president. We don't have, I mean, it's mind boggling to us that their base, the Democratic base, is threatened to be weakened, and they're just sitting there talking about some um, infrastructure that could come easily if they fix this other thing first.
Right, absolutely. And that's why we're talking about the fierce urgency of now.
Yes, sir.
We don't need any more nice speeches. We need action
That's right.
around that. And that's what we voted for last year. I mean, that's what
That's,
we organized for. That's what we, contributed to, right? In
yes,
terms
sir.
of what happened, across the country. And that's why, I mean, we got to watch this whole strategy, and I'm going to name it minority rule. And I'm going to name that because that's what I was born into and raised into in South Africa. And it seems as if, South Africa has done a great job reading the script of how America has maintained and sustained, right, de jure, right, discrimination and de facto, oppression, right, exploitation, etc., and now it's clear that the U.S. is reading the South Africa book, right, in terms of what the Nationalist Party has done there around minority rule and what they were able to get into, the new constitution, in South Africa. So we gotta realize, how all of this stuff, is connected, and as we move forward, and we've got to analyze, mobilize, organize, as we move forward with what needs to be done. And just like all of that is happening nationally, we are sitting, in this, state nation, called California, dealing, with a recall, that was pushed through, and yeah, let's call it what it is, by Republicans, not just in the state but nationally, around that. So let's zoom into that a little bit. Jan earlier mentioned, as we talked about, war. Jan mentioned, women against, the recall. So Jan, let's talk a little bit about the strategies, around that. And we got to be clear here. It's not just about the person Newsom, right? It's about the platform, right? We don't want a recall of the platform that the person represents. But even though we know there are some cracks in that platform, I mean, we've been disappointed, in some form or fashion by Governor Newsom, right? But we are clear in terms of the platform that was built, the platform that got us through, COVID-19, et cetera, et cetera. But Jan, talk a little bit about, just this women against, the recall. And then Pastor Smart, I want us to connect around the faith community and what our role need to be, around this, for such a time as this. Jan?
Okay. I think that one of the things I want to do is make sure that we connect the dots and look at the one of the sayings from, way back when used to be think globally, act locally, right? And so for us not to forget that it is it is an international world that we live in. And that our best actions, though, are very local. So I want to say, Reverend Smart brought up 3 pillars that are very important when we're thinking about California and the recall. One was voting, and I'm going to say again, we got to remain fully engaged with the voting. I know it gets weary sometimes, but guess what? We have an election, a recall election on September 14th. That's about 6 weeks from now, right? Today is August 1st. I'm not sure how many people know that recall election will happen on September 14th. I'm not sure if folks know that there will be ballots in the mail on or about August 17th. So that's coming. It's coming very soon. And then the other thing is, I'm not sure that folks will know how to work the ballot to how to answer the questions, right? Because the first question is going to be, should we have a recall?
Right.
Then the second question is going to be, well, who you want, right? And California has been here before. If you all recall, or maybe you don't, maybe we learned about it in history. We had a Governor Gray Davis. They had a recall, and we got Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Lord have mercy.
Right? So with a recall election, right, then if people say, yes, we need a recall, then they got a list of names. And with that list of names, the person who gets the most votes wins, right? So that means if we say, yes, we want a recall, you go to that list of names and you choose some folks on there, that they don't need a majority of folks. It's not going to be a primary. It's not going to be a runoff. It's the person with the most votes wins. Now, let's look at how the Republicans are organizing in California and how the Democrats are not. I am one of those people who I vote all the time. And if you're one of those people who votes all the time, when there's an election coming up, you're getting all kind of mail telling you who to vote for, who supports whom, all that kind of thing. I have not gotten one piece of mail about this recall election. Not one piece. And it is critical. So let's say we have a recall in California. Well, not say, we are having a recall election. Let's say that they say yes, because we didn't vote to say no. Let's say we get a new governor that's a Republican who came in with a minimum amount of votes. Well, that Senate is a very thin margin right now. It is 50-50. And it could be that California appoints another senator, because I don't know if you all recognize, but Dianne Feinstein is not in the best of health, and she's certainly not a spring chicken. So if the next governor or a recall governor that is only in there for a year gets to appoint a senator, and they appoint a Republican senator, now that shift of power in DC becomes a real issue. And will we get a Voting Rights Act? Will we get a John Lewis Act? Will the filibuster be a thing? So it is incumbent upon us to be vigilant about how that shift of power can happen right here in California, right? And also that, we need to keep our eye on Georgia about what's going on in Georgia too, because it's happening in Georgia. But how it has those implications on a national basis in terms of a Voting Rights Act or a John Lewis Act, and then how it has implications internationally in terms of the international policies, the immigration policies, et cetera, that Congress, because the Senate is no longer tied up, will be able to not impact or to be able to implement. So it's, like I said, it's a long game, it's a tricky game. And you are absolutely right when you say that the right hand does know what the left hand is doing. They got several strategies at play. We need to be able to play that field as well as put some offense on the field too.
Yeah, thank you, Pastor Sauls.
Yeah. As we transition to Pastor Smart, what Jan is really saying to us is it's time to check back in, y'all. It's time to check back in. This whole notion, about, I'm trying not to be political. As a black person in America, your very presence in this country is political.
Yes, sir.
You see, so if you trying to check out, then white supremacy has already, infiltrated you, infected you, disempowered you, and bamboozled you, to think that you can check out and hope, that others will have your best interest at heart. Folks, it's time to check back in. Pastor Smart.
Yes, sir. Yes, I 100%, because, this recall is all part of a game, because over the last couple of years out of California, this past election, the organizations in California was doing more organizing outside of California than inside of California. They were in Georgia. We were in Georgia. We were in Arizona. They were sending money to all of these places. And so we made a big impact. California made a big impact globally, as you were talking about. And so this, to me, this recall is something to say, okay, we're going to attenuate your role moving forward by putting your attention in keeping it in California right now, so that your money and your organizing and the unions, the mass amount of union organizers that was in Arizona and Georgia, no, you got to stay in California right now. So we have, even though those elections are not not imminent, but they are next year, still, that they know that the resources that we're putting into this recall is going to in some way taint us of our ability of what we'll be able to do next year. I'm aware of a lot of resources that are getting ready to come down. In terms of people, there are unions that are organizing door-to-door campaigns right now. There are grassroots organizations that have had postcards out there. They have already, one has surpassed over 100,000 calls they've made. There's a lot of organizing going on in the progressive types of communities. What we have to do is that organizing based on what you have just said, Pastor Sauls and Sister Jan, that we need the governor to continue where he is. Because, Jan, you remember the conversations that was going on when we wanted a U.S. African-American woman as U.S. senator. And then he came came back and finally said, okay, if it's when there's an opening, he will appoint a black woman U.S. senator. We need that seat. We need that woman in there. We need him to remain governor. And so we have to do a lot of organizing. You said it's the urgency of now. That's the theme today. It's the urgency of now. And there's ways of doing that. But I have to be very careful of saying it as a pastor today. So I'm speaking of as William Smart, not connected with SCLC, not connected with my religious body, because so for my 501c3, because they're playing all kind of games. But I'm saying there are strategies in place, and we have to advocate, we have to accentuate, and we have to empower ourselves by voting no on this recall.
Absolutely. And so, Pastor Smart, I know we're gonna, be on it this month. I'm gonna jump back and forth by what's happening here and what's happening in the land of my birth, South Africa. Yes. So we're gonna do as always, our transnational thing right here from South LA, connecting with South Africa. And we know, Jan, at some point we gotta get to what's happening in Haiti, what's happening in Ethiopia, what's happening in Cuba. So a lot's going on, and we're trying our best to cover it all. And all of that, but I just want to once again just thank Jan as always, just for for providing perspective in a very, very a powerful way around connecting the dots. And I think the thing that's clear, Jan, what I'm hearing from you is the recall that's taking place next month in California has national and international implications. Let me say that again. The recall election that we must participate in has national and international implications, y'all. It ain't just about wearing a mask and shutdowns and all of that stuff. No. It has that implication too. But let me say again, it has national and international implications, because we live in a state nation, right? In a nation state, called California, around that. And so Jan, we're gonna do some more around this, and Pastor Smart, we'll talk some more.
The thing, I just want to say one more time, for the folks in the back, September 14th.
September 14th.
We know time is flying. Your ballot will be in the mail on, like I said, around August 14th. Today is August 1st.
Right.
So this is coming up soon. I'm looking at the Facebook page, and Sandy Cook put in there, make sure that you are registered to vote, that your status has not changed, because that's another trick. Right. Yep. Or another thing in terms of if you moved because, the pandemic and housing, because that situation is still in effect. If you change your relationship status or your name because of it, you might need to re-register to vote. So check your status. Make sure that you are able to vote. Don't get accidentally kicked out the game, because this game is in motion right now. 14 days from now, you might be looking at a ballot in your box. You need to know what's on it. Yeah. Because September 14th, you got that major holiday in between there, Labor Day. It's easy to forget and let go.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're gonna hit it hard, and we'll do use all the platforms that we have around it. Pastor Smart, I know we'll talk about how to engage faith communities. I know folk are eager to get back in the sanctuary to worship. I hope you never stopped worshiping, because, as Jesus said in John chapter 4, verse 24, worship is not, or the church is not a place somewhere. It's God's presence everywhere. I hope that folk turn their homes into sanctuaries, right? Because Scripture says where 2 and 3 are gathered. So I hope you didn't stop worshiping just because you couldn't get to the building or at a certain address. God can be worshipped right where you is. And as we try to get back to sanctuary for a service of worship, let's please remember that it's also important to get into the streets so that we can facilitate and make sure that we can engage in worship through marching, worship through service, and practice, our faith, in so many different ways. I want to thank Pastor Smart, as always, for coming on. He got on my case because of the photo that I used for him, but I thought I'd show him in a little relaxed, way, because I know he's always ready for war. And so I'm going to have to change that photo, Pastor Smart. But when I saw that photo, man, I was like, yeah, let me try and see if I can get.
I don't mind, Pastor. I appreciate you.
I like that photo, man. I like the other one with the collar and all that stuff too. So I'm cool, man. But but thanks, man. Appreciate you, and looking forward to our ongoing partnership. Around that, and then also, Sister Jan, as always, thank you. And Pastor Norwood, Bishop Norwood couldn't join. He had an emergency, at his church, and he texted me, said they are still with authorities. So I texted him back and said, prayers up for what's happening there in Atlanta at Bible Way right now, and we know we'll catch him, at another time. Diane Henry is in. We're going to talk about, Buddy Mason and close our time out together. And so I'm glad that she's here. And so we're going to pause and transition to that. We have a video that we would want to play for you about the life and the legacy of, Buddy Mason. And then after that, I'm bringing in, Diane, to come and talk to us, about Buddy Mason and exciting event that's coming up, on August the 7th. But first, let's take this break and just watch this video and learn a little bit more about who Buddy Mason is, and then we'll talk about it on the other side.
This is, let's say, Jason. And editor, if we can change to the next shot. Yeah, right there. This would be where Jason lives. This is downtown Los Angeles. Jason works here. Selena studies here. Michael boxes here. Brandon talks to his Tinder matches here. Vanessa, well, she shops here. Probably. All 5 of these young people hang out on Spring Street. This is that street today, the epicenter of the hipster apocalypse. Meanwhile, this is Spring Street over 100 years ago. Back then, one woman saw potential in this area before a lot others did. Her name was Biddy Mason.
I was born a slave in Mississippi, but in 1851 my master joined a wagon train and me and my 3 young daughters walked from Texas to Los Angeles. Now in the 1850s, California was a free state, so I escaped and went to court to argue for my freedom, and I won. Shackle-free. I set up a business downtown working as a nurse and a midwife, and I took those earnings and invested them in land in downtown Los Angeles. The first strip, right near what is today 3rd and Spring Street.
Biddy paid $250 for that first parcel of land, but it was just the beginning. She would go on to amass a real estate fortune that was worth an estimated $300,000. That would be more than $6 million today. By the time she passed away in 1891, she had become the wealthiest black woman west of the Mississippi. Today, there's a lot going on in downtown LA, from art, music, and shopping to drinking, eating, and of course, the Lakers. But lost in that wee bit of gentrification is this travel coterie for the culture stop. A tribute to the woman who was once one of the largest landowners in Los Angeles. The slave who started with nothing but built an empire.
All right. Yes, we celebrate and we give honor to Buddy Mason and Diane is here with us. Good morning, Diane. How you doing? All
Can you
right.
hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. How you
Yeah, I want to
doing?
say good morning and what a great discussion today. It has encouraged me to invite all of you to please use August 7th as a time to bring information. We are having our resource table,
Yes.
and I would love to have someone have a table set up for voters registration.
All
This is
right.
one of the purposes for even having this event. 7 years ago, I had the privilege of walking on the grounds of Biddy Mason's home. And at that particular time, I had a spiritual awakening, a spiritual connection. I wanted to celebrate my birthday. I was looking for a venue, but once I set foot in that space, I said, "This is a woman who needed to be celebrated.
Mm-hmm.
This is a woman we needed to learn more about. This is a woman we needed to emulate."
Mm-hmm.
So from there, I got a group of women together. We planned an event. And at that particular time, we paid homage to Biddy Mason's legacy,
Mm-hmm.
as you've just seen on the in the video. And we decided to honor unsung sheroes who had given service to the greater Los Angeles area.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And at that particular time, we also had our guests and tried to say to them, please emulate, please copy, please do the service that Biddy Mason set an example for.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He
Wonderful.
used what she had, no excuses. She kept it moving, she kept stepping. Her perseverance, her tenacity is what we need to do. And
Yes.
even at this moment, we're talking about voting registration and being conscientious about what's up next. We need to spread that word. So
Mm-hmm.
on Saturday, August 7th, our our event, what we call it's our annual Unsung Shero Legacy, a call for boldness.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, we need to be bold. We
Absolutely.
need to be bolder than we've ever been.
Yes, yes, yes. That's just great. I'm so glad we get to talk about it. I remember when I was at home in church, you actually introduced me to Buddy Mason, and I had to go down to, the memorial, and just kind of, find out about, who she was, because in California, you know, as as it is across the country, Black history, the impact of Black folk, that's kind of just so minimized in so many ways, because the goal of white supremacy is to make us feel like, imposters on the one hand, on the other hand, to make us feel like we're insignificant, right? That who we are and what we've done do not matter, around that. And so I was just, amazed, to find out about, Buddy Mason, just her, as you say, her tenacity, her perseverance. I mean, she, for me, really bridges in a very bold way, resistance and reimagination, how she went to court for her freedom, right, in terms of resistance, whatever other barriers, were there, resisted that, but then just reimagined, the power of owning property and what one can do, with that, in terms of that. I'm going to ask, Felicia to put the flyer up of the event, that's coming up on Saturday, and just ask you, Diane, why do you think that we need to celebrate the life and the legacy of Buddy Mason, and what do you think she would her life and legacy? What is it saying to us? During this time that we are in, in the United States.
She was a great example of pushing forward, no matter what her conditions were or what situation she was in. She was a woman of faith. She was a woman who said, no matter what, I know that there are better ways, better times for not only me, but for my people. That's the other thing. She did not selfishly build an empire for herself. She was a philanthropist. She was an activist with money, and she used her money to serve others. And this is one of the things that we need to not only keep in mind, but we need to be intentionally building wealth for ourselves and for the service of others.
Mm-hmm.
Owning dirt is so important. And that's why people know, as it floors me when I see all of these developments going up like popcorn,
Mm-hmm.
and people are still sitting at the table trying to figure out what to do with affordable housing. Well, guess what? The way you can figure that out is start unpermitting those who are putting up those developments and put restrictions on developing for people to live in affordable places.
Mm-hmm.
Stop making the priority to be money.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Now on the 7th, we're going to be celebrating unsung heroes. I do see a few brothers on there too, but let's talk a little bit about the heroes, then we're going to get to the good brothers that you have on there, and you have just some phenomenal women, on that flyer that were nominated, and I see several that I know. I want to just lift up, one that I appreciate, admire so much, and work with, and that is Carol Magruder. Who is with the California, African American, Tobacco Control Leadership Council, and she, I mean, at the heart of who she is saving Black lives in the fight, against the ongoing fight, against big tobacco, and how, they seek to continue, facilitate predatory practices, targeting, our community, and so many others on there. But tell us a little bit about, these, unsung, heroes that we have, on there, and why them.
Well, just to carry out what Carol is doing, first of all, she is adding to the contribution of getting these inhalers out of the mouths of people.
Mm.
Our breathing situation has become so traumatic. Every other person and meet are carrying around an inhaler. And that is because we have become either subjected to the tobacco industry,
Mm-hmm.
and or we recipients of secondhand smoke. So our immune systems have been compromised. So I salute Carol in her work. Another person, if you can just put the screen up again, the
The flyer.
flyer.
Mm-hmm.
Another person we look at is Carla Jones.
Mm-hmm.
Carla is the program director out of the Compton Flying Academy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we talk about what what good can come out of Compton. Well, guess what? Greatness comes out of Compton.
Mm.
They are teaching the kids not only how to fly an airplane, but how to fly in life with their potential, with their aspirations. And this is something that we need to continue to employ our support in building the confidence and the tenacity of our young people, because this gives them a reason for even wanting to vote.
Mm-hmm.
If they don't have that empowerment, then what are they going to do with it?
Right, right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I see so many other folk on. I see Alisa Oduna, on there. We work together, around issues of houselessness. I see Melita Johnson on there, who is a real estate agent, but also, working in the area of mental wellness. So many others there, that we're gonna celebrate. I also see a couple of good brothers on there as well. I see my brother Pastor Q on there. Tell us about the good brothers that you have on there, and why.
This year, we decided to extend our borders to including the Good Brothers to dispel that emphasis that black women and black men cannot work together.
Mm-hmm.
That is nothing but a tactic of systemic racism to divide and conquer. And we need to understand with Biddy. Biddy did not just go to court on her own, but she had a support system. She did not work in a vacuum. She had a good brother to let her know that she right now in California had freedom rights.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to be conscious about our unity and we need to protect it. So
Mm-hmm.
honoring the good brothers was one of the ways to do that. And
Mm-hmm.
then also extending that unity to the international sisters. One you've mentioned, another one I like to lift up is Miss Sutherland. She had
Mm-hmm.
been working in the corporate industry for years and decided to relocate to Ghana. And
Mm-hmm.
now she is bridging young girls with girls here in America. She has been of great assistance using her gifts, talents, and skills
Mm-hmm.
to assist people in that area.
That is great. Yeah, I mean it is international. I see my sister on there, Dr. Mary Augusta Adam from Johannesburg, South Africa, working on the front lines of COVID-19. Also there, and our a nonprofit from South Africa, beloved Community Coalition. We're glad to be a co-sponsor of this as we continue to build global bridges around the work inspired by life and legacy of Buddy Mason. This will be an in-person event, I believe. So can you give us the address and how people can get more information, about
Right.
the event?
With honoring the COVID-19 restrictions, we are going to come together at 333 South Spring Street.
Mm-hmm.
That's between 3rd and 4th Streets
Mm-hmm.
in Los Angeles. You cannot see the park from the streets,
Yeah.
but we will have a sign pointing you to the right direction. This is a free event,
Mm-hmm.
and as well as complimentary parking is available on a first come, first served basis.
Mm-hmm.
Food is there, great company, great music, and not only that, great information.
Yes, yes, yes. Look, I'm looking forward to it. We'll be in the house. We want people to make sure that we observe, COVID-19, guidelines. So come, with your mask. We're going to work on social distancing. We'll have sanitizers there for you to wash your hands and make sure that we keep everyone, safe, because we want you to live your life so we can celebrate your legacy too, around that. Diane, how can people get more information about the event?
They can contact me at Henry, HenryDC83 at gmail.com.
Okay, let's give
That's
that.
Henry DC Henry 83
Hmm.
at gmail.com.
Okay, great. Al, when I repost today's link for the show, we'll put that into the chat so people can see how to get that information. But
Thank you. And I just want to say heads up to Janet, who has been one of our major sheroes in this community. Keep up the good work.
all right, all right. Hey, well said. Diane, thank you so much for the work that you are doing, lifting up, the lives, the legacies, of, individuals such as Billy Mason, and how to celebrate our heroes and our heroes who live their lives right now, in alignment with, what Billy Mason has been about, what she's done, the inspiration that she's provided, and here we are. Because of Buddy Mason, we have First AME, who's one of our major prophetic, congregations in the city. So, I mean, her legacy lives on in so many different ways, and we're just so grateful for what you are doing. So, thank you so much,
Thank you.
and
My pleasure.
we will see you on Saturday. Continue with the planning, and prayers up to you and the team for all the good work that you are doing. Take care and have a blessed day, as well as a wonderful week.
And you as well.
Thank you. That's been Faith Without Borders, beloved. So glad you could join us. I want to close us out again with that quote of Dr. King, because it really captures, what needs to happen right now. Dr. King writes to us right now, and he says, "We are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. We are confronted with the fierce urgency of now. In this unfolding conundrum of life and history, there is such a thing as being too late. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. Let's get in this game called democracy and see how we can save the infrastructure of U.S. democracy." That's our series we're in right now. Glad you joined us. Keep on keeping on, and live your faith towards racial equity. Thanks so much. One love.